Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about a film that's both a horror and comedy hybrid, so it's kind of both genres at the same time, and that is the film Renfield. This film is basically a original story, but it's using a character from a really well-known novel, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Nicolas Cage does play Dracula in this movie. But in this film, though, you guys, basically Renfield is about a young man that became Dracula's assistant way, way back in the day when Dracula was kind of in his prime and, sucking blood from everybody from any line of life he can get a hold of. And so basically, after a while, Dracula starts dying out, so he needs an assistant to go out and find flesh and blood for him to basically keep himself alive for years to come, basically. So he finds this young man named Renfield, and he basically turns him into his assistant. But unlike Dracula, who needs blood to survive, Renfield needs bugs to survive. So that's kind of the unique thing about him is he needs to have like spiders and ants and small bugs on the ground basically to stay alive and to become the vampire that basically Dracula can become as well. But in this film, though, you guys, it does take place in present day, and it's getting to a point in Renfield's life where he wants to not really be a part of Dracula's life anymore. He's really getting sick of being the assistant. He lost a wife and a daughter years ago because he became Dracula's assistant, and they passed away years ago. And so he's basically just getting to the point where he's just not connecting with anybody. So he's trying to seek therapy about his situation. And the therapy session, is trying to get him to be proactive, trying to get him out of this abusive relationship. He didn't directly say that he worked for Dracula or worked for a vampire or anything, but this therapy group is trying to get him out of this situation. And while this is happening, while Renfield's trying to connect with people again, there's a bad crime circuit that happens. It's a bad cocaine situation in the town that he lives in, or the city, I guess, that he lives in. And basically, Renfield kind of interfered with the business, and so now this crime circuit wants him dead. I believe the leader of the gang is played by Ben Schwartz from the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, who voiced the character of Sonic in those. So Ben Schwartz is basically wants this guy's head. He wants him dead for ruining all this crime stuff that he had organized with his, mob family. And so over the course of this movie, Dracula finds out about this gang, and he basically wants to become the leader. He's basically brainwashing them to think that they can live forever with him being a vampire, and with him sucking their blood, they can basically become undead and live forever and become vampires themselves and things like that. So Renfield gets the help of a female cop that he falls in love with later in the movie, and he basically, because he's a vampire himself, is able to kind of get this female cop into places, get this female cop, get her into the right connections to basically stop the crime circuit once and for all. So over the course of this film, they have to stop both Dracula and this gang from taking over the city, and it's up to Renfield and his new female cop love interest to basically save the day. But overall, guys, I enjoyed Renfield. It's a very fun movie. It's definitely very aware of what it's trying to be. Like I said, it's definitely a horror comedy, so it's trying to be both genres at the same time. More so comedy than horror. It's definitely kind of like a dark comedy kind of vibe to this movie. But I really enjoyed it. It's a very fun time at the theater. So let's go over some positives and negatives as to why I enjoyed Renfield, why it's not a perfect movie, but why I enjoyed it overall for the most part. For my positives and negatives of this movie, Nicolas Cage as Dracula is just so much fun to watch. He's a very campy version of Dracula. Definitely a very fun performance from Nicolas Cage. He's always known for being super over the top with his performances, and this is no exception. He's extremely over the top as Dracula. It's a ton of fun to watch. I loved every scene he was in when he was eating up the scenery. Definitely a fun take on the Dracula character. Only Nicolas Cage can really go something really out there for a role like this. So Nicolas Cage as Dracula, definitely the price of admission alone, definitely the best part of this movie. There's also a lot of scenes dealing with Dracula and Renfield in the past, how they met and stuff like that. And I want to say they use old Bela Lugosi Dracula film footage to basically make this work. And they use old black and white filtered scenes from old Dracula movies to basically show how Dracula's been doing this stuff for all the years and how Renfield has been a part of his life for all those years. Really fun stuff. I kind of wish the film spent more time with that, which I'm going to get into my negatives here in a little bit. But when they do show the black and white filtered stuff, when they do use classic Dracula footage to make this work, it's a ton of fun. Kind of wish the film spent more time with it just because I had so much fun watching that. Also, the chemistry between Renfield and this lady cop that he pursues a relationship with. A ton of fun here. And to be honest, too, it's not really much of a relationship. It's just someone that he has feelings for, someone he's willing to help out, somebody's that he's willing to save in a bad situation. But because he's disconnected with people and he wants to kind of feel romantic with somebody again, I think that that's kind of ultimately where this person relies in his life. Um, I thought they had a lot of chemistry. Awkwafina plays the lady cop in this movie. So I thought her and Renfield had some real good chemistry in this movie. They were a ton of fun to watch on screen. They played off of each other's jokes really well. So I thought the chemistry worked really well between the two of them. The film's humor is also a lot of fun. Like I said, when Nicolas Cage is on screen as Dracula, it's just a ton of fun to watch. He just gets so over the top with his eyes and his hands and all this other stuff. And it's just, there's a lot of stuff like that that's kind of intended to be funny. And it's just, I just had a ton of fun watching all the stuff. I liked how him and Renfield kind of play off of each other as well. So the film's sense of humor is very effective for me in this movie. I thought a lot of the jokes were really funny in this movie. Also, the scenes where Renfield, it really is being this familiar, which is basically a vampire's assistant in fancier terms. When he's basically being this assistant for Dracula, those scenes are a ton of fun to watch too. It's basically we get to see Dracula in kind of a deteriorated form right away, and we kind of see over the course of this movie how he becomes the Dracula we all know over the course of this movie, and how he gets back to that form. But it was very fun to see kind of how Renfield pursued his familiar work, how he pursued all this vampire assistant work. Ton of fun when they pursue that in the movie, and I thought that was a lot of fun to watch on screen whenever the film pursues that. Ben Schwartz, who did the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog in the two most recent live-action Sonic the Hedgehog movies, he plays the villain in this movie, and you can tell because he basically sounds like Sonic the whole time, so it's clearly the same actor and stuff. He plays like the crime circuit villain in this. I actually had a lot of fun with his character. It was kind of fun to see, like I was pointing out to my friend of mine. It was funny to see kind of this potty mouth version of Sonic, kind of. So even though it's not, Sonic's an animated character, but when you see Ben Schwartz on screen and it's clearly the same voice as Sonic, it was fun to see kind of this potty mouth version of Sonic as the villain of this movie. I thought that was a ton of fun. For my negatives of this movie, though, I thought the crime circuit slash gang subplot wasn't very interesting. And for the most part, this film is trying to be set up as the Dracula we all knew from those old Universal monster movies back when Bela Lugosi was playing him. And I just don't know if this was the best present day scenario to put Dracula in. I thought that aspect of the story was very weak. There's so much more you could do with Dracula. How does he respond to social media? How does he respond to today's technology? How would he respond to Tesla cars? How would he respond to this? How would he respond to that? How would he have responded to the internet if he was aware of what the internet was and stuff like that? Just so many more things you could do, specifically with both him and the Renfield character that the film is focused on. I just thought this whole crime circuit, cocaine bust, crime gone wrong subplot just wasn't the most interesting way to go for bringing Dracula into modern day. So I thought, like I said, that aspect of the story was kind of weak for me. So I thought they could have used a better subplot as far as how Dracula was adapting to the modern world. I also thought more time was just overall needed with Nicolas Cage as Dracula. Like I said, it really is kind of the price of admission for why you would see a movie like this. And there's just a lot of scenes where it's just Renfield in a tough situation, or Renfield and the lady cop trying to bond, or Renfield trying to figure this way out of this tough scenario, and him trying to figure out, people to bring to keep Dracula alive all this time. But there is a lot of times in the movie where we spend a lot of time away from Nicolas Cage as Dracula, and because he is such a fun interpretation, whenever he's off screen, the film kind of loses its momentum as a result. So more time I felt was needed with Nicolas Cage as Dracula. I think putting him in the forefront as much as Renfield himself would have absolutely been the right choice in this movie. He gets a lot of screen time, don't get me wrong, but I thought more time needed with him was absolutely necessary. I also thought more time was needed on Renfield's past. We kind of only really learn about his wife and daughter from the past, and basically in conversation, really. We really never get to see a full scenario as to what life he left behind to go work for Dracula and stuff like that. It's just mostly brought up in conversation. So I thought that aspect of the story could have been explored some more. We know just enough about Renfield, but because he is the key character of this movie, I thought that part could have been better developed as well. And also because I liked that black and white filter stuff, like I was talking about earlier, so much, and because it clearly was taken from those old Dracula movies, I just thought more time could have been spent in that. You maybe even put the first third of the movie in that world, in that black and white filter, in those old Bela Lugosi movies. Like, create new footage, put Nicolas Cage's face on Bela Lugosi's face and stuff like that. Really spend more time in that world. And I thought that really would have helped this movie explore just kind of how abusive, how Renfield really just kind of became this guy that was bringing Dracula flesh and blood over the years, and how Dracula was just kind of hiding in the darkness until Renfield brought him just enough blood to come back to life. So I thought that aspect of the story could have been explored some more, just because it was so much fun to watch. I'm sure it was very expensive to pursue for the production as well, so I'm sure that's another reason why they didn't explore it as much as they did. But whenever we do see that old black and white footage, it's a ton of fun to watch, and I so wish that we had so much more time spent on that. But overall, I'm going to give Renfield an 8.5 out of 10. It's a really fun movie. It certainly has its good things going for it. Nicolas Cage definitely plays a very fun Dracula here. But like I said, the crime circuit subplot really didn't work for me all that much. More time was needed with Nicolas Cage's Dracula. More time was needed with Renfield's past and kind of how he became to be. And just more time with that black and white filtered stuff. I thought that was a really fun way to pursue a Dracula film for modern day. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. I really enjoyed Renfield. I do recommend seeing it. Go into it knowing that it is funny and that it's a lot of fun, but it also has some problems as well. So just go into it knowing that it's not perfect. But 8.5 out of 10. Really enjoyed this movie. I do recommend seeing Renfield. 8.5 out of 10 for me.